For those of you who have spent a tremendous amount of time in Diablo games, you all know that we've been waiting for Diablo 4 for quite some time. I played the original Diablo, Diablo 2, all of the expansions, and Diablo 3, all of the expansions and multiple seasons. I was hooked on the game series the first time I heard Dicker Kane say, "Stay a while and listen." Diablo 4 will release on June 6th of this year, and if you have early access, you'll get to start your journey on Friday, June 2nd. This is my review of where Diablo 4 is, what I think of it as a game in the franchise, and answer some questions that people have asked me in the game, such as, is the game pay to win, or is the higher price tag for the game worth paying that amount of money? This is your spoiler alert. I will be talking about the game and showing some footage that will contain potential spoilers. This is the beta, don't forget, and things are subject to change at any time in the game. Let's get started. At the start of the game, you can choose between 5 different classes: the Barbarian, the Necromancer, the Sorcerer, the Rogue, and the Druid. There are more classes coming, according to information from Blizzard. We'll have to wait and see. Next, you get to the lackluster character creation choices, where you can change the usual hair, eyes, makeup, tattoos, skin color, etc. This is very basic customization choices, and I think they could have done much better in the choice department here. I'm going to start out with the things that weren't quite right with the game. As you begin playing the game, what stood out immediately was the standard Diablo UI, and it was the same old style we've come to expect from Diablo. I was hoping for more flash or something different, if you will, but this is what we have to work with, so this is what we'll use. I played both weekends the beta was live, and some things clearly stuck out as needed to be fixed. Some classes performed much better than others. The Necromancer and Sorcerer were very overpowered at early levels and outperformed every other class by clearing whole rooms of mobs and taking seconds to down dungeon bosses. I used a Hydra build for the Sorcerer and a Blood Surge and Corpse Explosion for the Necromancer, and that made leveling and clearing rooms stupid easy. Also add in the legendaries that drop from the sky like candy, and those only help to synergize and buff up the abilities I was using, which made the game a complete joke. Both of these classes were able to access their level 15 class bonus abilities, which also helped them stand above the other classes that could not. A side note about legendaries, Blizzard did state that legendaries will be harder to get once the game goes live. The Rogue also performed well with Twisting Blade builds, Flurry builds, and Barrage, or a range build. They all did really well. I was able to change up builds and experiment without a huge penalty to my damage, which was really nice. While the game is not melee friendly due to bosses dropping poison or blood-infused dots on the ground and then standing in them, daring you to come at them, I found that using the dash ability and having a ranged attack to get the boss's attention to come out of those areas so I could use my melee ability seemed to do the trick. I used all 3 builds at one point and even used some variations of these builds to some great success. Some of the worst gameplay came from the Barbarian and the Druid classes. Let's start with Barbarian. As I mentioned before, the game is not melee friendly. The Barbarian is all melee. You gain your rage by being in combat, and when you had to step out or away from the boss or mob to create some distance, you lost your rage. I tried both the Whirlwind build and the Frenzy build. Unless you got a legendary to augment the Whirlwind, it played horribly. You either couldn't keep it up due to rage issues, or you just couldn't hit enough mobs. The Frenzy build did perform a bit better, but still suffered from rage and melee issues. Also, you could not unlock your expertise technique at level 15 because it was locked behind a quest you had no access to. The biggest disappointment for me was the Druid. I did not play either the Bear or Werewolf builds due to lack of interest. It just wasn't for me. I really wanted to play an Elemental Druid. I played both the Tornado and Lightning Storm builds, and they were terrible. Some of the graphics on the Lightning and Tornado builds could have been much more pronounced visually, and using some of your spenders to charge up your bigger damage abilities like Tornado or Lightning Storm was boring. And those abilities were not hitting as hard as I think they should have, which made the boss fights in dungeons last much longer than they ever should have. The Tornado build felt like the same old build from Diablo 2 and was simply lackluster. The Lightning build felt a little better, but not by much. You could not complete your level 15 Spirit Boon quest because you could not access the area where the quest was. This is a massive miss because you have 3 other classes who had access to their level 15 class quests and it really put them up much higher in overall performance. Also, concerning class builds, not much was known or explained in the game to help the player. If you wanted an in-depth description of how all of these talents work together, simply reading what the talent does sometimes isn't enough. And you had to visit an outside website like maxroll.gg or Icy Veins to see if your choices were correct. By the way, maxroll.gg is the site for all of these things, and I'll leave the information in the description below. There was a lot of learning as you go, such as you could teleport from the inside of a dungeon to either the dungeon entrance by mousing over the entrance stairs or back to town by using the teleport, but there was no tooltip to explain these types of situations. Tooltips were few and far between. Let's talk about in-game or anything past level 25. We don't know anything. 25 levels in an open beta is a great stress test, and quite frankly, I think it went pretty well overall as a stress test. But trying to showcase your game, which I know goes much deeper than what we were allowed to play, we were only allowed to play 25 levels, and not all the things in classes are constructed equally. The overall testing of the game isn't a real overall test. During the beta, there were, of course, disconnects at times where people had to wait in queues, some rubber banding issues, especially when leaving the main capital city and traveling east, you would hit a wall due to so many players entering that part of the zone. So you had to either port out to another city or choose another exit area and run much farther to your next destination, and that was annoying. But this is what a beta test is for. Overall, the class builds were lopsided. They needed balance or at least have the same access to class-specific abilities to make them feel more tuned. If I was a casual or new Diablo player, I would have been really pleased if I had chosen the Rogue, Sorcerer, or Necromancer. I would have been really disappointed if I would have chosen the Barbarian or the Druid due to their lack of power and survivability in critical situations. Now for all the good. Overall gameplay was good. The game really had that dark Diablo feeling. The gameplay visuals and overall look of the game in the outside world and in dungeons was outstanding. The rendering of monsters and cities were very, very good. The world was visually stunning. There were waterfalls, rivers, rocks, mountains, etc. That's not a surprise coming from Blizzard. The characters look simply amazing, from their armor to weapons to stances. They're brilliant. When you are in a group, you can see all the players looking simply amazing. While I did mention that there were some issues with some of the classes' performance, the combat system I felt was really, really good. I do feel that the dev team could add more buttons for more abilities, but we'll have to wait and see what they want to do there. I felt the pacing of mobs in the outdoor world and in dungeons kept me entertained, and who doesn't love a good massive amounts of mobs to smash? What really surprised me were how good the cutscenes are and how dark they are. I thought using the current in-game graphic models was a great choice and really blended in well with the game. I was very pleased by this, as the storytelling, including the side quests in the game, are quite good, and Blizzard has done a great job of reminding players that you are fighting in a war with demons from hell, a war you must win. Dungeons were fun, and it was very easy to group up with my friends to either finish the storyline or kill the world boss. There were some criticisms on how repetitive the dungeons were and how the layouts didn't change much, but players were only allowed to play in one zone in Act 1, so of course it's kind of the same thing. Although I did not test the hardcore mode, I have plenty of hardcore experience in Diablo 3 and did watch some streams with players who did play hardcore. There may be some issues playing hardcore, as the Butcher spawns randomly in dungeons and is significantly much more powerful than you are, and did kill quite a few hardcore players. There are also world bosses who will be a significant challenge. I watched a hardcore group lose half of its team while attempting the world boss. At this time, I'm not sure if Blizzard is going to make changes to help the hardcore side of the game. In regards that Diablo 4 is pay to win. Great news, Diablo 4 will not be pay to win. You could pay for the battle pass if you would like to get some of the seasonal items maybe quicker, such as cosmetic items, but there will be no way to pay for power in the game, and that's coming from Blizzard Entertainment. A quick reminder that Diablo Immortal was intended to be pay to win because it is a mobile game, and that's how they are made. Diablo 4 is not a mobile game, and the only things you can buy are cosmetic. Where do I think this game is compared to other games such as Last Epoch, Wolcen, and Path of Exile? It's better. There's just simple polish. From visuals to combat systems to storytelling, Diablo 4 is simply better in spite of some of the glaring class balance fixes that need to happen. The position the game is in now in a beta state is far better than some of the finished games out there, in my opinion. What kept me playing the game? Because I played a lot of it. I liked that I could just immerse myself in a world where I felt like a true hero. My favorite class fantasy is the rogue, which I really made into a ranger class. That being said, the gameplay wasn't overly difficult. I was able to play with my friends on either console or PC. I loved going into the dungeons, smashing loads of mobs, downing dungeon bosses, world bosses, and watching legendaries rain from the sky. I liked how my character looked as I leveled up, and I liked how fun the combat was. I did like the fact that you could reset the dungeons and do them over and over. I also liked how the butcher spawn was a rare surprise in the dungeons, as this gave the dungeons a more dangerous feel because you knew at any moment that he could spawn on top of you. I liked how the healing potions worked. Instead of filling your backpack up with them, they were easy to get from the boss drops while you were fighting the boss, and you were able to level how potent the healing was. You can even pet the town dogs. My overall review of the game is this. I do believe that the game is worth $69.99, the price tag you are paying for so much more than what we've seen so far. Even the casual player who takes their time will have a good 200 plus hours in the game easy, which equates to be about 35 cents an hour, a bargain in my book. There are so many more dungeons, world bosses, and events, and even mounts that we have not been able to access. I'm very excited for this game to come out. Players have been very vocal about class balance, how talents work, and general gameplay in a way that lets Blizzard know they need to be fixed and made better. There's plenty of time for Blizzard to fix the class balance issues and tweak things to help players enjoy the game more. That's it for me, everyone. Don't forget to catch my live streams 5 days a week on Twitch, and please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.